Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Shiv. I'm the co-founder of Osmosis, and today we have the great pleasure to speak with Dr. Sare, who is a neuro resident at University of Southern California, and most famous for his very popular YouTube channel, which has over 40,000 subscribers and has been seen millions of times. Doc, thanks so much for joining us. I'm really glad you were able to take the time out of your intern year to do so.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Great. This is, as you know, the Leaders in Medical Education interview, and we chose to feature you as a leader in medical education, just given the huge impact you've had on so many students who've watched your videos. I really would love to hear, first of all, how you got interested in medicine, kind of what your journey to this point has been.
Sure. I mean, one, thanks for telling me I'm being considered in this leader of medicine group. I just always thought of myself as some kid with a camera on YouTube playing around. I mean, when it came to medicine, I was quite lucky. I would say I had a very friendly upbringing. My parents were really sweet, but then just unfortunately, my mom got quite sick when I was quite youthful. So I just spent a lot of time during elementary and middle school taking her to all of her appointments, kind of helping her get her medications fixed out. And I think one thing you do as a child is you find role models, whether they're your parents or people you work with or professionals you see. Somehow something attracts to you. I think a lot of kids probably get interested in athletes and sports. For whatever reason, I really didn't. And for me, I think just seeing such a heavy medicine integration in my youth just kind of got me excited about the field, because I realized there are really good people doing really nice things for my family and trying to help my mom get better. So that at a young age just kind of made the physician role to me sound like a really amazing profession, something I wanted to do. In college, I got really lucky. I went from being just like an average, high school student to going to really a great college at St. Mary's. It was small. It was a Catholic liberal arts college. It was super small community. And that's where I really got to kind of find my niche, that I did want to serve people, I did want to do medicine, and that I did love science. So I got quite lucky. I got to see the real practice of medicine quite early on, and I got to see how positively it affected my mom. And then in college, I really did get nurtured and kind of supported into going into medical school.
That's awesome. And so you wound up going to UC Irvine, correct?
Correct.
Great. And during those 4 years or actually you spent a couple more years because you did your MBA as well. I'd love to hear about your decision to pursue the joint degree too.
Right. So UC Irvine, you can do the classic 4-year MD degree. They do have a 5-year MD MBA program where you do 3 years of med school. So you'll do the first 2 basic science, 1 year of clinical. Your 3rd year, you'll go off to business school for a year and then come back. You'll do your 4th year, finish that up, and then do another half year of MBA. And then that finishes up the 5 years, and you graduate with, the next class, who was 1 year below you originally, with both an MD and an MBA. And for me, I would say, the MBA is, it's not for everyone. You have to have some inclination to perhaps want to work more classically, maybe in hospital administration, or for me, you just wanted more business experience so you could understand how healthcare works and how you can have more of a role in changing how healthcare is in the future. And for someone like me who does do the YouTube channel and is interested in medical education, having an MBA is only going to help, because medical education kind of, the changes happen at a higher level. At my point, I'm helping one student at a time, whoever watches the video. But if you want to work for a school or work for a team or a company, having some managerial skills can only help.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. That's very similar to my experience in business school as well, and what it's given me. But I would push back and argue that you've, one student at a time watches your video, but at this point, tens of thousands have already benefited from it. So it's more
Correct.
impact, I think, than an individual school could have in the time you were able to do it. And actually, that's a good transition point to. I'd love to hear how you got interested in medical education specifically, and then decided to even create a YouTube channel.
I mean, I wish I had a really clever or well thought out answer of, I always knew I was going to be an academic and I always knew I was going to do medicine and medical education. But in reality, I was a quite poorly focused high school student, getting in trouble, mediocre grades, who just didn't have direction, just a person who was bored. And then in college, I really got excited about school. I was studying all the time. I was really interested in schoolwork. And that was a really big transition, to go from being perhaps a lost high school student to a really focused and driven college student. And right around that paradigm shift is when I created the YouTube channel. I realized that like a lot of my friends back home, I would call them and tell them, hey, here's what I'm doing in school. Here's what my mentors in college and professors are teaching me. Like, look how cool this is. And look at how now I can focus for longer periods of time, or how I can study more effectively, or I'm even studying in general, versus goofing off. And I was doing that originally by just like calling a few of my friends and keeping them all up to date. And then I realized, I was like, well, there is YouTube, and I do have this really cheap Sony camera. I'm like, why don't I just record this stuff, and then all of them can watch it at once instead of me trying to make phone calls and just try to be more efficient. And that's kind of how the YouTube channel started. I just wanted to originally give back to my friends all the benefits I was getting from going to college, because we had all kind of goofed off in high school together. And now I was like, guys, look at all this great stuff I'm learning and how I'm kind of moving in a better direction. I'm like, just watch the videos, and I always say in all the videos, I'm like, it's my biased and never humble opinion, but just check them out if you want. Try to adopt the advice. But then, I was getting feedback from viewers from all over the world at some point saying like, hey, thanks for your videos. And I was like, hey, who are these people? And that's when I kind of got the idea of, wow, people actually care about these things. I'm not the only student in the world who's trying to do better. And then I was like, I should just make some more videos on things I'm doing at school and benefiting from. I'm like, I'm at a really good college. I'm getting great mentorship. I really should be sharing this. And YouTube was a really easy to use platform where I would hit record, I would talk, and I'd hit off, and I just upload. I never did, much editing. And that was how it started to grow on its own.
That's really awesome. That sounds very similar to kind of Sal Khan's story, where, as you probably know from Khan Academy, that he didn't ever intend for it to become this huge organization, but he was just kind of just trying to teach his nieces.
Exactly, yeah.
That's awesome. When did you start, like, kind of how was that growth trajectory? I mean, was it the first few months it was just your friends, but then you started getting discovered? And how did you go to 40,000 users and 3 million views?
Sure. I think in the beginning I was probably one of the few people on YouTube who were really talking about medicine, and who were really talking about, I know in college, like, because YouTube at the original point was for a lot of fun videos. Like, people would go to YouTube to relax and to enjoy entertainment. Cats playing pianos, people, skateboarding and breaking legs. Like, that was what YouTube really was. Everyone does. But then, like, when I started to put more serious things on YouTube, that was like a really big barrier, because I realized it's going to be really tough for me to take an entertainment fun platform and try to make it into something serious. Like, that was my biggest worry at first. How am I going to get people who are, resting on the couch or taking a break from work on YouTube to want to now focus and think about something quite serious? So in the beginning, it was a really aggressive, steep curve. And I realized I just had to do very focused advertising. So I would like go to, Student Doctor Network or some med school forums or like undergraduate Facebook groups at my school, and just be like, hey guys, look at this channel. And I think from there, people just kind of caught on and shared with their friends. And it was more of a social growth among friends of how the channel grew.
Very cool. And were there particular kind of videos that you felt were inflection points, like when you covered specific topics?
Oh yeah. I mean, to this day, our most popular video is the guide to the physical examination. I think that one has like 800 something thousand views.
Wow.
That one I did during the first year of med school with one of my colleagues. And I probably half the reason I did neurology, I just love the physical exam. And I was like, how fun would it be if we like did the physical exam, we put it on YouTube, we gave it our own goofy spin, but we of course like focused on the content. Because I remember being a first year med student, trying to learn the physical exam, not having like a lot of, there was like, no offense to Bates, but like there was like some Bates and New England Journal videos, but they were so stiff, and I didn't really, I didn't feel like I was learning well. And I was like, let's just make our own video where we're learning in school, and hopefully some other med students can catch on. And after I made that video, the channel just really started to explode.
That's awesome. That's really, really great. I've seen a couple, and they're super entertaining, like most of your channels, the videos I've seen.
But I gotta say, like, I think when it comes to like what made the channel kind of grow after that was I realized the videos where I just give what I call common sense advice seem to do the best. Like, I recently posted a few videos, and one has like 4 times the view of all the other videos I posted in the last month. And that's like 4 core strategies to learn more effectively. So these kind of broad topics of like, how do you make the first year of med school completely manageable? Like, how do you not get caught up in the details? How do you make studying for step one not an insurmountable thing? How do you take better notes when you're in college? Like, these kind of basic things that I think you want to hear from upperclassmen are the ones that did the best. And that's kind of the theme the channel took over. I'm just here to give you advice I'd give my little brother. Just take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost counterintuitive because you'd imagine that the secrets, the tips and tricks that nobody hears would be the ones that get most popular. But I think to some extent people just want reassurance to some extent.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, you mentioned that you're still posting, which I'm really impressed with, because earlier you were telling me before we started the interview that you are 2 weeks into your intern year as a neuro resident. How do you have time, and where do you see the channel going now that you're a resident?
Yeah. Well, I mean, thankfully in neuro, I'm lucky. So like the first year of neuro is a prelim or like internal medicine year. And then you go over to do your 3 years of advanced neuro training. But the hours are the same. You get up super early and you get home quite late. I just think, even throughout med school, people were like, shouldn't you be studying all the time? How do you have time to make videos? And I think you have to make the videos as you're going through the experience. Like when I was in the basic science years, I made a tremendous amount of basic science videos. And when I was in the clinical years, I made videos on how to do well in the clinic. And like during like board time, I was like, here's step one, here's step two. Because the best time to make these videos is really when you're in the moment, when you're experiencing it, not, a few months later. And I think you just have to, I think it helps that I make a very, usually a 10-minute video, no editing, just talking to the camera, one take only every time. Because if I don't make the video now, you're not going to get that energy. You're not going to get that real advice that I want to share. So I just have to make time for them. And the way we make the channels, the videos are short and to the point, and they're pretty easy to do.
Yeah. Have you changed your style much since you first started? You've upgraded past the cheap Sony camera, or?
Yeah, I have a DSLR now.
Nice.
Thanks to Newegg or some website where I got like a discount. No, but I mean, the big thing is I still have that same goofy intro everyone always comments on. What's up, YouTube? Like people always make fun of that. That thing is always there. We always end with, as always, enjoy your studies. But I think I think one big idea I had for the channel was I don't want to make it feel like it's a lecture. I don't want you to think I'm talking to you and like trying to give you notes. What I really wanted was the sense of like a cafe lounge or like couch conversation where you watch a YouTube video and you feel like you're talking to your friend and he's just giving you advice. And I think that's done best with like minimal editing or essentially no editing. I just talk to the camera. I don't do takes. I just think of a topic. I just talk about it like I would to a friend who maybe is a year or two younger than me and wants to know what to do. And then that's it. Because that way I want the viewer to feel like they can engage and they can listen kind of casually like they would with the person in real life, as opposed to like a formal lecture where I'm telling them things and editing up a bunch of different content.
That's awesome. That's a great kind of style, and a way to stay true to that style. I think has really probably helped, because I think some YouTube viewers really want consistency in channels they subscribe to.
Exactly.
Now, given that you have so many subscribers, I'm just curious, have you, you're sort of like a YouTube celebrity, especially in the medical and health space. Have you ever had any med students come up to you at conferences or even in your residency now? Like,
I have.
Yeah, tell me, what's the funny story?
The first one was I was at the UC Irvine gym with my friend. We were just lifting weights, and like 2 or 3 guys came up to me, and he's like, "Are you that guy from YouTube?" And I was like, "Yeah." And like in the middle of the workout, they made us like stop working out, go stand in the corner and talk to them, and just chit chat about what they're doing in school. And it was just like, they're like, "Oh, thanks a lot," and they, we all exchange numbers. But it was just fun to think that even like in the gym, or it's even happened in like libraries and restaurants around UCI, people just recognize you from the website. Like, "Hey, don't you talk about stuff on the internet? Like, you got a few minutes now?" And it's crazy to think that people kind of even recognize your face, let alone want to take the time to talk to you on the spot.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
Even in the middle of a chest workout, people want to interrupt.
Yeah,
but I was happy to do it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And so now you're probably transitioning to more resident level topics. Is that your plan? You're going to talk about maybe.
Right. So now I want to talk about intern year, what you do on the wards, what you do in the ICU. Because even 2 weeks in, you're already learning the techniques of like how do you make intern year better.
Right.
Because I remember like just even 2 weeks ago, the first like few days, I was like, you felt like you were swimming in water and you barely had a life vest. But now you kind of got the grips on it. So hopefully in a month or two, I can start making videos about what's intern year like, what makes it a challenge. And I think a really big part of what I want to talk about next is the social aspects of being a resident. What's it like with your significant other? What's it like not having sleep and being grumpy? How do you control these things?
Right. Right.
Because in one part in school, you spend a lot of time just on content and just going to school, taking tests. But now comes this more, adult social component of you're busy, you're doing work, you have to learn, but you also have to interact with a wide variety of people from all different backgrounds and do it elegantly. So that's my new thing is how do you behave? How do you influence people? How do you behave in a way that makes people want to support you as opposed to just, feel disgruntled by orders?
That's super useful, and I can speak to that, from personal
Hello?
experience. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me? Hey,
Hello?
Mo, can you hear me?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you?
Oh, okay. Sorry. I can hear you now. I don't know what happened.
No worries. I was saying that's super useful. I'd be very interested in watching those videos too, because so both my co-founder Ryan and I are he's married to a neuro resident at UVA, and I'm engaged to an OB-GYN resident at Hopkins, and already kind of through their eyes seeing that transition and seeing them learn how to do some of the things you're talking about, how to interact with the collaborative care staff, including the nurses and PAs and pharmacists, how
Exactly.
to, things that you don't learn in med school that you probably should, which actually brings me to my next question, which is, your YouTube channel is full of advice, obviously, but I'm curious if you had to boil things down to one or two things that you would like to change about, say, med school or even intern year so far. Can you think? Not sorry to put you on the spot. Can you
Oh,
think of
sure.
one or two things that you really would like to change if you could snap your fingers and do so?
Yeah, like when I think back to I think the first 2 years of med school are just such a challenge for most students. I got lucky at UC Irvine. I did well in the first 2 years. I think the big thing was I had a good social network of friends who were all pushing each other and being supportive. And when I think back to the first 2 years, the biggest stress is everybody else. Everyone talks to you about how important step one is, about how you got to be studying 24/7. So one thing I wish we could do is try to like take out that step one fear in students in the first 2 years. Because if you studied kind of like how you did in college, I remember in college, like studying was so much easier. You just like, you went to class, you studied, you tried to get an A, and then you went home. Like no one was worried about step one every day. But it's like you go into MS1, people are already buying first aid before they even learn how to study in med school. I've heard even some med schools give their students first aid like during orientation of first year. So one thing I'd like to change in the first basic science is let's not start doing UWorld too early. Let's not just study first aid. Let's try to learn our clinical medicine, learn the foundation, see how it applies clinically, and then you can worry about first aid a bit later or about step one. That's a really big thing because every student I see is all they think about is step one, which I know it's important. It's part of your residency app. I get it, but you want to be a well-rounded physician. Don't just worry about the standardized exams.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, that was part of what turned me off of my first year and a half of basic science, and also now in the position I'm in, where we work with tens of thousands of students as well. The I feel like over the last 4 years, as we've been growing Osmosis, it's just gotten worse. I think there's just more things out there, more pressure, and even the NBME admits that they really, students should kind of de-emphasize step one, view it more as a learning opportunity that gets them to a certain level of knowledge as opposed to the end all be all of their careers. Because
Right.
ultimately, I think one of the things that made it most clear to my mind was, we were paying $50,000 a year to go to Hopkins Med, and we had this lecture our second year of med school by a Nobel laureate who helped discover
Wow.
telomeres. She helped discover telomeres.
Wow.
That lecture people used to skip until they made it mandatory because they realized it was second year, boards were only a couple of months away, and telomeres are not high yield for the boards. And I was like,
Exactly.
that is completely the wrong way to think about it. Ultimately, I wish that lecture was more clinically relevant because I'm not going down the PhD route, and I'm not
Right.
discovering telomeres myself. That being said, the reason you pay a lot of money, I think, to go to a school like UC Irvine, we talked about Warren Weichman, who's an assistant dean there, is to find mentors and find really awesome role models and people to bring it back to where you originally got your interest in medicine, as opposed to just getting a 260 on step one or whatever it is.
Exactly. Or even that, I mean, that's the goal. It's like you have a Nobel laureate, you have someone who thinks very uniquely, who has a very unique worldview, and now you have the chance to go up after a lecture, before a lecture, and get one-on-one time with this person, where if you weren't at that school, good luck even getting a phone call in. It's like, that's the beauty. You get to listen to people's, the basic science, they often talk about their own research a lot. But if you just take a moment and think, oh, this isn't high yield, but also consider, wow, this person did something really creative. They thought in a very unique way. I can ask them questions about how did you think about it? What's your way of organizing your thoughts? Because you can apply that to anything. And that's the beauty of meeting really high-end people.
That's all. Yeah, couldn't agree more. So that was your suggestion for improving medical school. I'm curious, have you, you're just now a doctor and practicing. Do you have any thoughts on ways that you would improve, say, the healthcare system or residency specifically?
Sure. I'll focus on the healthcare question. I think I got lucky because I got to see healthcare extensively from the consumer point of view up until I started med school, right? Rather intensively. From like middle school all the way to the end of college, like I was extremely involved in my mom's healthcare. I went to all of her appointments. I went with all these specialists. I helped organize all of her insurance work. And I realized unless you have you have the free time that I had, as college, I would make time to organize all of the appointments, keep calling the insurance, pushing for authorizations. And granted, we had a nice PPO and I was still doing all this work. The biggest hurdle that I see in healthcare is it's really not organized and it's by no means consumer friendly. The thing that I hate the most is, like, as an intern now, I get to see it. Patients come in, they have some chief complaint. They usually come in through the ED. They get admitted to us. We try to fix whatever acute problem they have, and then we discharge them. And we hope that on their own discharge, people feel sick. Not everyone has a strong social support network. You need to do something to try to get people's organized healthcare ready outside of the hospital. We are very good at, you come in the hospital, we can repair you pretty well. But once we send you out, that discharge and you doing follow-up, getting the right specialists on board, being able to negotiate with insurance and pharmaceutical companies to get the medications you need, to get the scripts you need, to get the imaging done. That amount of interaction requires a good amount of understanding of how the healthcare system works. And most people just are not that involved in healthcare. So that's, I think is like a huge hurdle that no one's quite addressing on a hands-on technique of patients come in with problems and they get lost to follow-up. They get lost to proper follow-up or discharge planning because no one's helping them navigate the extremely complex system. And that falls with two problems. One, should we fix the extremely complex system that isn't very well organized? Yes. But until that gets done, which I think will be quite a while, in the interim, we need to help people navigate the system by kind of, third parties can just do it for them or some kind of government funding so that, patients don't go out and they come back in a month later to the hospital and say, you know what, I couldn't get in with cards, the insurance wouldn't let me get the MRI, I'm back in with the same nausea and dizziness, I don't know what to do. And as an inpatient, physician or resident taking care of them, you don't have the control or the time or even really the authority to go into the outside world and try to navigate these things for patients.
Yeah, that is I think the MBA part of your understanding of the healthcare system has come out. I really do wish that more medical students got more training in the science of healthcare delivery, because I think, while we're only one, physicians are only one component of a very complex and increasingly kind of bloated system, they're a really important bedrock, especially those physicians who then wind up leading in insurance companies and hospital systems. So I think that's a really great insight you have on how to, on the needs and challenges of healthcare.
Right.
One last question, because I know you're busy and post-call, I don't want to take up too much more.
Sure.
Is you've already kind of commented on this a bit with how you change medical school. But if you could, you've probably seen increasing reports about, stress and burnout among medical students and physicians. What's a piece of advice that you've incorporated into your own life to hopefully avoid burnout and stress?
That ironically, that question is at the core of what I try to teach people when people like reach out to me or want some kind of like specialized one-on-one talks. The number one thing I tell people is ignore all the noise and focus on the voices in like inside your own heart. There are tons of people who are going to tell you what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, what you should be doing in medicine, what you should be studying. Everyone's going to give you advice. And the problem is, like, if you think about that, your brain can only take so much, and everyone's advice, unfortunately, is not going to be the best for you, even if they have the best intentions. You really have to, try to ignore as much of the noise you can, because there's going to be, nice people who are trying to help you and give you advice, and that's great. Sometimes they're going to fail at doing so. And there's also going to be students who are going to be like, unfortunately stressing you out, who are going to be telling you, hey, I just did 4 blocks for step 1 today, and I read half of Golion. Just making stuff up or who knows what. You have to be able to flush out all that noise and listen to your own heart and say, okay, I'm in the 2nd year of med school. I have step 1 coming up. Should I be doing UWorld? What should I be mapping out? Finding mentors who have your best interest in mind and can help you filter this noise to data ratio. That's the key, because you came into medicine, frankly, you want to help people. You have a genuine interest in trying to make a positive difference. Don't get distracted by the minutia. In the long run, it will not matter. But for now, listen to your heart, study what you need to. It's fun. Clinical medicine's exciting. You already like it. Don't let other students or other people get in your way. Follow your heart and you'll be fine.
Well, Doc, I knew that based on your profile and all the YouTube videos I had seen that you would be a perfect candidate for Leaders in Medical Education, but this interview's only kind of reaffirmed that and made it very clear that you are. So I'd really like to thank you for your time. And if you stick on for a few minutes, I'm just going to end the broadcast here, but thank the audience for listening to this episode of Leaders in Medical Education. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.